Welcome to this episode of Season 6 of The Common Bridge, where policy and current events are discussed in a fiercely nonpartisan manner. The host, Richard Helppie, is a philanthropist, entrepreneur, and political analyst who has reached over 5 million listeners, viewers, and readers around the world. With our surging growth in audience and subscriptions, The Common Bridge continues to expand its reach. The show is available on the Substack website and the Substack app. Simply search for The Common Bridge. You can also find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. The Common Bridge draws guests and audiences from around the political spectrum, and we invite you to become a free or paid subscriber on your favorite medium.
Brian, how are you? We got another one of these today?
Yes, we do. We're going back to the mailbag, Rich, and it's good to see you again. I've been in Hawaii. You obviously are someplace. You got a Hawaiian shirt on, but I haven't seen you in a while. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and this is actually this was a gift, and I got my Red Wing logo here because
Nice.
you can't be a diehard fan unless you've died hard, and we're going to see what happens. We just got to get in the playoffs. Come on.
So great.
I know we don't really have a mailbag. I know we get a lot of emails, we get texts, we get back channel stuff, and then we get a few public responses. But I like what you're doing with publicizing the show, because our numbers keep going up, and I appreciate that. So at the top of this, I just want to thank our listeners, readers, and viewers for that continued following. That's nice to hear. So
yes, especially in the last quarter, Rich, your numbers have really taken off, and that's kind of exciting across all, from Substack to Facebook, social. So that's cool. A lot of people are interested in the Common Bridge, or at least listening to the center. So with that, let's take a look at 10. We're just picked 10 of our social media responses and Substack responses and just questions I have for you. So here we go. Okay. Number one, this is from a guy. I think it's a guy. It's from somebody named Trend Tide. He asked, or they ask, with the recent stock market gyrations, do you think this proves that Trump's policies are all wrong?
Well, first of all, it's a great question, and it's not uncommon. And there's a lot to pack in here. So first of all, anybody that thinks the stock market is, indicative of one absolute or the other generally ends up with not very good returns. There's lots of things that can affect the stock market. And it's not uncommon that in the first 2 years of a new administration that the stock market goes down, and then it's not uncommon it recovers in the last two. The stock market doesn't like uncertainty. And if one thing this Trump administration is giving the investing markets is a lot of uncertainty. They don't know how to invest. No one can really know how to invest if you don't know what tax policy is going to look like or tariff policies are going to look like. Earlier this week, the president of the United Auto Workers came out in strong support of Trump's tariff plans. But he also said, kind of settle in on a policy and we can live with it. And so the underlying economy is still pretty good. I think you're going to see wages rising when this investment that will be spurred by tariffs and potentially removing some of the workforce in the deportation orders. We could see a spur in wages, but on the other hand, I wouldn't bet on one thing. But certainly the stock market is in turmoil, not necessarily for policies, but because of the uncertainty. And it is a completely sentiment-driven downturn. There's nothing fundamental that's changed. It's sentiment-driven.
Okay. This is from somebody named DM Devon. Is the trans agenda truly in full retreat? Spell retreat wrong. Or is that just a misconception?
Well, I'm not sure what they mean by the trans agenda, but if we're talking about the medicalization of youth and the only diagnosis that a person can self-declare and get it affirmed, gender dysphoria, then yeah, that's on its way out. frankly, there never was science behind it ever. Even the reports or the studies that purported to show you could change a boy into a girl into a boy, those have been found to have no substance to them. And yet the opposite, what damages are done mentally, physically, emotionally to those children in particular, that should be on the way out. And now, again, we have to still maintain kindness and dignity for everyone. And if a fully formed adult wants to present themselves in any way they want to, then you know what? They should have the freedom to do that without fear. That doesn't mean they can change from a man to a woman, but if they want, or vice versa, but they can present any way they want to, live their life any way they want to. But what's been done to kids is not anything short of evil.
Fair enough. This is from Barb Echo. Barb Echo says, as boomers who have paid into Social Security, are we at risk of losing our benefits because of policies from Trump or Doge?
Social Security benefits are subject to law and policy. There's a common misconception among boomers like myself that, I paid in and we're waiting for it to be paid back out. When the fact of the matter is that money came out of our paychecks and it went to pay the beneficiaries at that time. And today, the young people that are working, money's being taken out of their paychecks and sent directly to today's beneficiaries. So it's a transfer tax is what it is. Now, when it started, Social Security was protecting some of the most vulnerable people, the elderly, who didn't have much savings. They were among the least affluent groups in the country. Today, a lot of that wealth is built up in baby boomers, and then next generations coming up are trying to look for a toehold. And you'll be hearing this argument. If you were a 20-year-old today and you were being asked or forced to put money aside for your retirement, would you give it to the government and they'll promise someday to give it back to you, maybe, unless they change because they're not obligated to? Or would you rather maybe have a retirement account that you could invest? And I think, the numbers are compelling. Had our generation been able to do that, we wouldn't be having this fear about losing Social Security.
Yeah,
time will tell.
That's a fascinating answer. Okay, this one I had to take some expletives out of, but I've cleaned it up. It's from WhisperLink. WhisperLink says, why does Doge require so much personal information from users? Got them out of there. There we go.
Okay, so the Department of Government Efficiency, why do they need personal information? Well, first of all, you're looking at computer code in unrelated systems. And at the end of some of those unrelated systems, there's money being paid out. And if money gets paid out, it's generally got to have a tax ID associated with it, either a Social Security number or an employer identification number or a taxpayer identification number. And if money is flowing into one entity or one individual, the only way to trace that is to find all the places that number comes up. Now, what Doge is doing, from what I can tell from the outside, but somebody with not unsubstantial background in computer systems, we now have technology that is smart, that can go in through all that old data and piece things together. And a lot of those systems were written at a time when those technologies didn't exist. And let me try to explain it this way. When computers were coming into more common usage, you had to tell where the data is and what the data was. And then you wrote your logic to say that data is over there, go get it, and here's what we're going to do with it. Well, now, search engines, they don't think about that. They're like, what am I looking for? Where can I find it? And that's what it looks like Doge is doing. They're saying, what are the patterns here? Now you incorporate some intelligence into the software, and you look for fuzzy logic and where are the relationships. And that's why they're turning up this payments going out to the NGOs that they can't tell where payments are going. I also see them getting tripped up by stuff we used to have to do in the mainframe days because you didn't have storage and you didn't have fast enough processors. So you did all kinds of things around dates. Like you didn't actually put a date in, you put a displacement from a base date. And of course, once that code stays around too long, the whole system fails. And I know every programmer out there knows this as one of the biggest lies. Yeah, we've got to get this fixed right now. So just do what you have to do. We'll go back and do it right later. No one ever went back and did it right. and the other answer was, oh, we can do it this way because this system will be replaced before that that method of doing the dates, for example, expires. Well, of course it didn't. And Brian, I could go on like this, but no, I guarantee you there's not even source code for some of the things that are running some major systems. There's three levels. There's a source code that the person sees. There's the compilation, which is kind of in hexadecimal, and then it's the machine language. And a lot of times we don't have the source code. Now, let me stop there because I'm about to put on a tutorial.
We're getting back into your origins as a programmer. That's great.
We could match back in the 70s and through my whole career, and with what we can do now is astonishing.
Yeah, we used to call that spaghetti code when it got mixed up like that.
Yeah, exactly right. Spaghetti code.
Okay, so this is from Mike on Substack. So we have a couple of Substack questions here. Why does Trump claim he can use the Alien Enemies Act for deportations, and how can he ignore a judge's order? What about the implications for justice and false claims?
Well, there's a lot to pack in there. So first of all, I'm not a lawyer. Everything I know about the Alien Enemies Act, I've read in the last 2 days. But apparently it is a law. It's been around for a long time. And one of the issues is, are we at war? And there are people that will argue that, well, only Congress can declare war, yet we have the War Powers Act, which has never actually been fully settled. And we're seeing our president's commander in chief, many of our presidents as commanders in chief, deploying the military. And as far as ignoring the judge's orders, my understanding of the chronology, which may or may not be fully accurate when everything is fleshed out, is the judge gave a verbal order or verbal request and didn't follow it up with an order until the planes had already landed at their destination. Now, another thing I see the Trump administration doing with the Alien Enemies Act is not much different than what the Clinton administration did with the False Claims Act. So, you could say it's clever lawyering. So what the Clinton administration did when they were unable to get healthcare reform through and they wanted to cut the budget for Medicare and physician payments, they found a law called the False Claims Act that was enacted in the Civil War era to prevent somebody from selling a lame horse back to the government. And the Clinton administration said, well, you're making a claim to Medicare. That's a claim to the government, right? We don't know that you delivered those services, so we're going to assume you didn't. And the hospitals and doctors that provided that services said, well, wait a minute, our billing's accurate. And Clinton administration said, fine, prove it. And it would take literally train loads of documents. And that was the way they extracted money from the healthcare system to meet the budget level. So anyway, I mean, that's the only precedent I know of. But, we're still going to there's still a lot to be said.
All right. So we're halfway through. We're still on Substack. Kirk from Substack says, won't imposing tariffs simply make everything more expensive, as some critics suggest?
Well, again, the economy is not a one parameter thing, like do this, that happens. There's always shifting parts. And again, I'll cite Sean Fain, who is the president of the United Auto Workers, the UAW. And he said, look, we've lost 90,000 manufacturing plants in the last 33 years. There's a great recap of this in Forbes, Forbes.com, and where he talks about that's 1,800, I think, units per state. And it started with the North American Free Trade Agreement. And at that time, those of you that remember the politics in 1992, Ross Perot said, you'll hear a giant sucking sound of jobs leaving the country. And Al Gore, that great prognosticator, said, no, it's going to create 400,000 jobs in the United States. So we have that. So the tariffs are designed to lower to level the playing field. And, I don't know where it's going to end up, but if, we sell cars and that country charges us a 30% tariff, and yet we charge them a 2% tariff, and we balance it, theoretically, there'll be more investment in the United States because they'll be under the tariff pricing. Let me tell you one quick anecdote, Brian. Mm-hmm. Years ago, I was visiting with the fellow that shared a condominium complex with me, and he was from a very well-known sporting goods empire family. And he told me at this time, he said, we have a baseball, and we can manufacture in the United States, costs us $5 to make that baseball. We can make it in, I forget where they were making it, someplace in Asia, bring it in with the import duties. It costs us $1.50. So we're not going to make baseballs in the United States. Now, if you took a tariff and said, all right, we're going to put a tariff of, $4 on every baseball, in using those economics of the day, now the imported ball costs $5.50, but somebody can make it in the United States for $5 and still pay their workers enough to live on. So anyway, I can't remember what was the question was about tariffs. All right, I'm going to stop. Right
you got it. Here's the last one from Substack. It's from Diane from Substack. Is it fair to compare Trump to Hitler, or is that just taking it too far?
Well, all Republicans are referred to as Hitler by that side of the media and that side. I mean, they call John McCain. Well, he is a Hitler. And obviously that's, just hyperbole, and it's, disparagement. There are parallels, though, make no mistake. And actually wrote a column that published on March 18th, and where we talk about that. And one of the things that allowed the Third Reich to rise was the fact that the opposition had swung so far to one side, and it created this tribalism and this need to do something and to be nationalistic and to follow a strong leader. And so there are elements like that. And so I think it behooves us all to get in the middle, talk with each other, and then figure out, well, what are the best policies for all of us versus trading one side for the other? Because it is a dangerous time, and, that power begets power. And so there's clearly risk here that we need to be aware of. And so if you're a big Trump supporter, the answer can't be, well, I don't like that, but it's Trump, so I'm going to back it. And also it can't be from the other side, I like that, but it's Trump, so I have to be against it, because that just opens the gap. It creates opportunity for really bad things to happen.
Got it. This is from Vibe Network. This person's name is Vibe Network. With reports of increased deportations, why does it seem like deserving immigrants are being targeted? What's the rationale behind making their lives harder?
Well, first of all, life of an immigrant is hard. If you or I immigrated to another country, life would be tough. We wouldn't know the language, we wouldn't know the customs, we wouldn't know where to get food, we wouldn't know how to rent a house, etc. And when our ancestors arrived in this continent, it was really hard. They started with nothing, arrived with nothing, had to figure out how to build a life here. And it came at great sacrifice. So the narrative of people that deserve to be here but are being swept up on deportation, it's real. I don't know how to quantify it. I know that there is a narrative basically ready to write those stories. And, anytime you do something this big, you're going to get it wrong. So I think, again, this is a great place to come together. Let's not have people that are injurious to the country in the country. Let's remove them now, yesterday. Let's ask ourselves, why did, whatever the number turns out to be, 12 to 18 million people coming in unvetted, why was that ever in the public interest? Why was ignoring overstays on visas ever in the public interest? And let's have that discussion. And then let's talk about what we need to do about those folks that are caught in this just whirlwind, because they're, most of them are trying just to live decent lives here. But I don't know if the end game is, clear the playing field and then have a rational system. But I also know that a large part of the work to find the people we clearly don't want, it takes a lot of personnel. It takes a lot of time. It spends a lot of money, and you might catch, 20, 50 people. Whereas, if you're being measured on pure numbers, you can go to an airport, a bus terminal, and just, sweep up a bunch of people. So, again, one of those policies that if you sat everyone down, you'd get to a reasonable approach. Yeah. But we're being left with this, everybody out of here, and worse, people that are green carded or landed immigrants being interrogated and harassed because of their skin tone or their accent. Yeah. And again, it's a dangerous time on that.
This is from Meme King 27.
I love these names.
Could cuts to Medicare and Medicaid result in vulnerable people being left sick and dying in the streets?
In an extreme scenario, yes. Not very likely. But we could put a lot of strain on our healthcare delivery people, our providers, that ultimately, if there's not enough money, then there's not going to be enough capacity, and services are going to get cut. And likely it would be triage. So things that could be delayed will get delayed. But, someone that comes in with a broken bone, appendicitis, what have you, they're going to get treated, although that wait in the ER might be longer. So again, the payments, not even a system, payment methods we have in the United States are horrible. They need to be reformed. I've written about that, and I'm not going to go any further, but until we get a better plan, we need to fund the one we got. Okay. Simple as that.
And we've come to the end of our list today. This is from QSnap 22. Is that right? Yeah. QSnap22 asks, is COVID truly over, or are we still dealing with its ongoing effects?
Well, the second part of that's easy. Yeah, we're still dealing with the ongoing effects. That we still have work to be done, discussions to be had about why did we let this virus basically destroy the freedoms that we enjoy. One of our popular guests, Robert Greenfield, who lives in Australia, he and his wife were met at the airport upon coming home to Australia and escorted by the military wearing hazmat suits and carrying weapons into a hotel and guarded there and not allowed to leave for a period of time. I don't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks, but
yeah, I remember that conversation though.
And Robert also told us about that there were state lines that a person couldn't cross a state line, that they were barricaded and prevented. And of course, in this country, we had a very intelligent virus that could tell if you were sitting down or standing up in a restaurant. We had governors so smart they could tell you which aisle of a store you could go down. And they were immune, though, because certain of those people were allowed to travel. But as far as the disease goes, we just had Dr. James Baker on talking about where COVID is today, talking about his view on the efficacy of the vaccines. But the censorship that shut down great voices that now are within our government, hopefully trying to do some good things. And maybe we'll get back to science being science again, which is a continual inquiry and a presentation of the facts.
Sounds good. We did get a comment from another reader from Substack that asks us to do more mailbags like this. This person enjoys them. Yeah, maybe once a month, right?
You know what? I like doing them because it's one I don't have to prep for. And we've got some great stuff coming up, by the way. We have a gentleman coming up, Larry Schell, who identifies himself, let's see if I can remember, it's a TERG, a trans exclusionary something gay. And what a great perspective this guy's got.
He's a heck of a Substack writer too.
Yeah, he is. I'm looking forward to chatting with him. And of course, we'll be covering the economy. We'll be covering, various policies. And I'd like to remind my listeners, readers, and viewers of this. The Democrats and Republicans going at each other, that's their fight. That's Washington, D.C.'s fight. Okay. No one's out there fighting for us. All right. We still haven't figured out healthcare payment. We haven't figured out firearms. We haven't figured out affordability. We haven't figured out environment. And as long as we keep giving our time, attention, energy, and or money to that partisan fight, it's not going to get solved because there's too many people profiting from it. So let's talk to our neighbors, talk to people that perhaps we may not agree with, but let's see if we can find some common ground. So we'll meet you on the Common Bridge.
Thanks for joining us on The Common Bridge. Subscribe to The Common Bridge on Substack.com or use their Substack app, where you can find more interviews, columns, videos, and nonpartisan discussions of the day. Just search for The Common Bridge. You can also find The Common Bridge on Mission Control Radio on your Radio Garden app.